Welcome, everyone. Good morning. As everyone is aware, this webcast is about upgrading to Maximo 7.6. We've got quite a few slides here to go through, so there's quite a bit of information. We'll kind of take you through a little bit of a journey, I guess, about what's really involved with upgrading to Maximo 7.6. Quite a bit of information here. So here's our agenda for today. There's quite a few topics. So first and foremost, we'll talk about a little bit about the end of support information for Maximo 7.5. As probably everyone is aware, or hopefully aware, end of support for Maximo 7.5 does take place here in a few months. So we'll kind of talk about, how does that affect your organization? What exactly does this mean? Things like that. We'll talk through some release details and upgrade considerations. So, from a technical perspective and a functional perspective, really what does it take to get up to 7.6? Some of the requirements, system requirements, technical requirements, things like that. We'll talk through the upgrade path and approach. IBM does have a specific upgrade path that should be followed. Obviously, it is a certified path. So it really is, there's a few steps there that we need to take into consideration. So I've got a couple slides on that we'll talk through. Obviously, every customer, every organization is, there is slight nuances to each environment. So, you can't follow it perfectly, I guess. So there's certainly nuances to that. We'll talk through some new features, application and functionality. Obviously, with the upgrade from 7.5 to 7.6, you are getting additional functionality. So we'll talk through a little bit of that. Lastly, we'll do live demonstration. So we'll actually log into Maximo. Hopefully, for those that have not seen 7.6 before, you'll see that there is differences, specifically with the UI. From 7.5 and 7.6, the colors have changed. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. And then lastly, like Marta mentioned, we're going to do a Q&A session. All right. Okay, so talking about the end of support information. So on April 11th, so last year, IBM did announce the end of support for all Maximo 7.5 products, including any industry solutions. So any industry solutions such as oil and gas, utilities, anything that's added onto Maximo 7.5, end of support is effective April 30th, 2018. So we've got a few months, obviously. What does that mean? It means fixes, patches, telephone support are no longer provided for Maximo 7.5. So what's going to happen is, if you try to submit a PMR, and they need to make changes to code or help you out in that sense, obviously it's not going to be provided with Maximo 7.5 anymore. All right. There is extended service contract that is available or support. You can purchase that through IBM, and of course that is at a premium cost. All right. So I think the big thing coming out of this is, 2018 here, we really recommend that anyone still on Maximo 7.5 to start the upgrade planning process at least very soon. And in 2018, hopefully you can make your way to Maximo 7.6. One thing I'll just note here is if you've got a stable Maximo, you have not submitted PMRs, you don't need, there's no defects, you haven't had to install a fix pack in 7.5, that date doesn't affect you too much, I suppose. Obviously, we certainly recommend moving to 7.6, especially with all the new functionality and features that are available to us, but it's just something that's it's a consideration. All right. There's a few products in the Maximo suite that don't actually have a Maximo or a 7.6 version equivalent replacement part. So IBM may offer a trade-up for these. So if you do have any of these, these offerings or products below, you may want to look at, have a discussion with IBM. You can certainly have a discussion with myself to see exactly what your options are. So if you do have the Maximo Mobile Suite in Maximo 7.5, those licenses potentially would migrate to the Maximo Anywhere product, which is the mobile suite. The Microsoft Project Adapter, the Primavera Adapter, those ones you potentially could trade up to the Maximo Scheduler product. And then we've got some other products, obviously the Asset Management Essentials, which is just basically the simple version of Maximo that does not include everything. That one you may need to trade up to the regular Maximo Asset Management. We've got Government, Space Management for Facilities, Data Center Infrastructure Management, and then Change and Corrective Action Manager. So there is potentially some trade-ups that you could do. Otherwise, it's probably recommend that you have a discussion to see what you could potentially do with those products. All right, just a little bit of a timeline here from a licensing considerations, because since Maximo 7.5 has released, there has been, a few changes to the licensing model. Okay, so back in September of 2009, so this was actually previous to when Maximo 7.5 was released, IBM did introduce the Industry Solution Limited Use License. As you can see, April of 2011, Maximo 7.5 was released. Since 7.5 was released, they've introduced a few licenses. Okay, so Express Licenses was introduced in September of 2012. All right, self-serve licensing, which is a no license required. This grants you access to the self-serve service requests. It is free. This was introduced in September of 2012 as well. In December of 2014, IBM did release Maximo 7.6. And at the same time, they did change the limited use license, the way that you basically define the user, how many modules they have access to. Previous to this date, you had to pick basically 3 modules for the whole organization, and then those 3 modules defined what your limited use license was. It's changed now, so it's a little bit more flexible. So it is now 3 modules per user. So it does give you flexibility in licensing for that limited use license. In December 2014, the Maximo Every Place was also included in Core. So you do have the mobility option. This one is an online-only online-only available application. It basically allows you to develop applications. It's going to change the user interface to be mobile-friendly. Lets you set a resolution and then have the ability to be able to view that on a tablet or potentially your phone. In October 2016, concurrent licensing was introduced. So that's obviously a new license. So the concurrent was there. So now, one thing I guess I just want to kind of talk about here is obviously the wrong configuration mix of licenses could potentially cost due to a substantially increased S&S bill, S&S being the subscription and support. So what I typically recommend is, as part of an upgrade, maybe it's a good opportunity to take a look at your licensing, see if it's adequate. Maybe you need to, change your mix or do certain things. So that's certainly something I recommend. Okay, so let's get into a little bit more detail. So there's release details and upgrade considerations. All right, so as you can see, as you know from the last slide, Maximo 7.6 was released about 3 years ago. So December 12, 2014. So the numbering standard is kind of 7601, 7602, 7603. What they've changed, or what IBM has changed, to something called a feature pack. In 7.5 it was called a fixed pack. So a fixed pack was in 7.5 was when any bugs were fixed, things like that. In 7.6, what they've done is they're now called feature packs. So they still roll out fixes, but what they also do is include new features in Maximo 7.6. Okay, and we're going to really talk about exactly what's been rolled out in each of the individual feature packs. You'll see that there has been 9 released in the past 3 years, so that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of how frequently they've been released. Right now, they're being released about every half a year, so kind of first half of 2018 there'll be one, second half of 2018 there'll be another one. There's been 125 interim fixes. So what these are essentially, they're smaller fixes, and they're related to each of the feature packs. And quite often what they are, they're just basically any PMRs that customers have submitted or business partners. Basically, these roll up into an iFix, which basically gets installed into a feature pack. Okay, our current version, so we just had a major feature pack release, 7609, so that was released December 1st of 2017, so last December, just last year. What I recommend, I guess, for an upgrade, you certainly want to ensure that all the installations or upgrades contain the newest feature packs or interim fixes. You want to make sure that because if you do upgrade and you stay at, for example, 7600, you may run into bugs. All right. You also don't get the newest features, right? So there's a lot of new features we'll talk about soon here that you're not going to get access to. All the feature packs, so feature packs, interim fixes are all downloaded through Fix Central. So you log in with an IBM ID, you can create one, and then it allows you to download exactly what that is. Okay. So you search for your installed version, which platform you're installing it on, and then it's going to allow you to download that feature pack. All right, lots of info on this slide. Obviously, when you are doing an upgrade, there's quite a few considerations that you want to look at, okay? This is really what's going to put together as a project as a whole for all the different items. So one of the things, current version and upgrade path, what is the minimum version requirements prior to upgrading? So we'll talk about the path here very shortly. There is a specific version that you have to get to in 7.5 prior to moving to 7.6. You'll also have to consider any industry solutions as part of this. So it really is a step-by-step approach and strategy. So you really want to be able to document that, understand what that approach and strategy is to be able to get to your 7.6 version. Number of users, this is really going to depend, or I guess change, what your system architecture is going to look like. All right, so how many JVMs do you have? What's the application server cluster look like? Do you need, multiple UIs? This is really what the installation is going to look like. Industry solutions and add-ons, like I mentioned before, obviously there's quite a bit of functionality included in industry solutions. The other thing to take into consideration is compatibility. So you want to make sure that the base services is compatible with your industry solutions. For example, 7609 base services. If you're doing an upgrade with oil and gas, you also want to ensure you're going to 761 for oil and gas. Third-party integrations. This is quite often a fairly large topic when you're doing upgrades. So if you've got a heavy integration to a financial system, an SAP integration, an Oracle EBS integration, this is a big consideration as part of that upgrade. You want to make sure that you're heavily testing the integration. It's also possible that through the upgrade, the database schema has changed. So there could be major changes there. Okay, so as part of the integration framework, you may have to modify those objects. There's a lot of different implications there. Java customizations. So as we've kind of moved throughout the version 6.2 to 7.1 to 7.5 to 7.6, in the past, Java customizations was really the way to go with, changing Maximo logic. Moving forward, obviously, we do have automation scripts. Okay, so quite often what we see, or what I see, is there's Java customizations from previous versions that have kind of moved along with upgrades. How do we handle those, right? Do we take a look at the Java customizations? Possibly out-of-the-box logic does handle the new process now. There's obviously lots of changes between, for example, version 6.2 and 7.6. We want to make a decision. Do we want to port those over to automation scripts? So we take a look at the code. We decide what we want to do with those. We may want to keep the Java customizations as is. So now we have to look at recompiling the code to ensure that it is on the new Java version that Maximo works with. Size and database complexity. So time to complete upgrade scripts. So this is a big one. With all upgrades, you do have to run an update DB script. So this is going to actually bring Maximo 7.5, 7.1 up to 7.6. Quite often, this does take a significant amount of time. So you do want to plan this. What is our outage approach, right? So if you're a 24-hour operation, how do we handle that outage, right? What's the process? Do we, what exactly do we need to do? Configuration complexity. So the upgrade does upgrade anything that was configured using the tools. So if you do anything in system configuration, platform configuration, it should upgrade. But sometimes things don't work exactly the way that you thought or were understanding in 7.5 or 7.1. So you definitely want to be able to test, right? Training requirements, so end user training, what exactly does that look like? All right, so if you're doing a like-for-like upgrade versus maybe you're doing a bunch of process improvements, I guess what's changed, right? Can you reuse existing training manuals? Really, that's you have to make that decision, right? And then lastly on this slide here is really, there's lots of new functionality in 7.6 compared to old versions. Maybe you want to implement work centers as an example. So are you going to allow for process and program improvements as part of an upgrade? How do you integrate the new features and functionality into your business processes? All right. So a couple things about Maximo 7.6. If you're familiar with 7.5 or if you're used to 7.5, you'll notice that one of the big things is the UI changes, okay? So there's significant user interface enhancements. So things like the side menu bar, this allows for simplified navigation, allows for dynamic searching. I'll show a little bit of that at the end when we get into the demo. Start center portlets, easier differentiation between areas of the screen. So IBM's really tried to modernize the UI for 7.6 versus older versions. Hover dialog boxes have been added, so there's a little eye beside a lot of the attributes that you can hover over. It's going to show some related information compared to, calling relationships. So, for example, on the screen there, beside the asset attribute, there's a little eye. You can hover over that, and it's going to show additional information about the asset record. Other things like labels, right? So in 7.6, labels are now above rather than on the left-hand side. So they've tried to kind of shrink the screen so that you're not scrolling over to the right. This, of course, is going to make you scroll down a little bit, but it seems like that's a little bit easier than scrolling to the right. Cruise functionality was introduced as well. So a crew consists of labor and tools that are required to perform work. So you can build out the crew, and then you can assign a crew to a work order to execute and complete the work. Enhanced automation scripts. So one of the nice things is there is integration launch points now in 7.6. Previously in 7.5, there was still integration launch points. So on objects, attributes, and actions, as an example. They've also introduced now integration launch points. So if you're consuming data from an external system, you can actually trigger an automation script to modify that data or do some sort of processing. One of the big things is work centers. So this was also introduced, and we'll talk about this a little bit coming up here. So we'll talk more about work centers very shortly. Okay. I always recommend consulting the Maximo product configuration coexistent matrix. So this really tells us what exactly is compatible in Maximo together. Okay, so what is it from an architecture standpoint? What is my application server supported? There's a lot of different things. It's really just a big matrix which shows exactly what you need to do from a server perspective to be able to install Maximo. So what exactly is supported? What OS, what Windows Server version, what browser versions? You want to make sure those are all supported. All right. Another thing is the coexistence matrix. This basically shows, I kind of talked about this a little bit before, this shows exactly which industry solutions are compatible with a specific version of Maximo. So if you're going to 7.609, which if you are in the process of upgrading, I certainly recommend it, it'll show exactly which industry solutions are compatible with that one. So from a server architecture design, so we'll talk about that a little bit. The upgrade allows you to really assess and evaluate the current setup. Okay, so from an application server perspective, do we need to reevaluate, how many JVMs you have? Maybe you have four UI JVMs. You need more. Maybe you're suffering from performance in Maximo. It allows you to really address and reevaluate and take a look at some of the performance related to the installation or the setup, because you're really, typically from, when you're upgrading from 7.5 to 7.6, you do need new servers, okay? Quite often, for what I've seen, is Maximo 7.5 is on Windows Server 2008. Maximo 7.6 is not supported on that version, so you do have to move to a newer server version. So you do have to reinstall all the environments, and it takes time, right? So allows you to scale up and down depending if user counts have changed. So if you've acquired different divisions and you have more users, you may want to reevaluate to see what you need. It also allows you to simplify the setup from an administration perspective. In 7.5, if there was some things from an administrative perspective that weren't working right, maybe you should reevaluate and see if there's something that you can actually do there to fix that. A little bit of a diagram just to kind of show everybody. This is, it's not obviously set in stone. This is not, there's lots of different variants of this, but it kind of shows you, how many different environments, a lot of different customers have. So if you're very small, simplified processes, you may have 2 environments. So this may mean that you have to do 2 upgrades. Obviously with only having 2 environments, there is some risk there. Which, if you do have 2 environments, we can certainly have that discussion afterwards. Medium, development, test, production. So you have to install Maximo 3 times, as an example. Do an upgrade 3 times. Obviously, once including the production run, and we'll talk about the process a little bit more here in a future slide. And then large, there's quite often there's lots of different environments. All right. So with large organizations, sometimes you look at a different strategy. Maybe you do a few upgrades, and then you look at maybe cloning machines. There's a lot of different options that you have here. All right. So like I mentioned before, you may need to do a full installation or clustering of the new servers. Highly likely. Okay, so some system requirements. I'll kind of go through this fairly quick. The design and the server architecture of your 7.6 environment is really highly dependent of the size of organization, how many integrations you have, do you have heavy configurations, do you have a significant amount of escalations. So is there lots of escalations? Do you have cron tasks? Does your PM Wogen take a significant amount of time? Do we have to maybe have a dedicated JVM to run that process? Do you have heavy report usage, right? So maybe you need a BERT report only server. So requirements, so administrative server, Windows Server 2012 and 2016. It's also supported on Red Hat Linux. Application servers, so this has changed. So 8.5, 8.5.5, and 9.0 are supported for WebSphere. WebLogic 12.1x, so any of the versions, and then also 12.2.1. So these are the IBM certified application server versions. And from a database perspective, you'll see there's quite a few different databases that are supported. So 2012 SQL Server, 2014 and 2016, Oracle 11R2, 12c, and then obviously DB2 10.1, 10.5, and 11.1. All right, upgrade path and approach. So a couple things that I just kind of want to talk about here. So really the big one here is analyze your requirements. So what exactly do we need to do as part of the upgrade? So the additional functionality included in 7.6, what should we really do? Should we need to compare that to our overall business needs? Past configurations, maybe reports, any customizations, they may be provided out of the box now. So we really want to make sure that that's included in the overall upgrade plan. Trial upgrade. So this trial upgrade process identified deficiencies with the Maximo database. So I kind of recommend this. This is kind of like a first upgrade run. This is really going to kind of let you know what the scope of your project is. Because depending on the level of customizations, configurations, database modifications, this trial upgrade may be significantly different. It may take you 5 days, it may take you 10. It's really going to kind of let you know how many errors potentially that the integrity checker is going to show you. And we'll talk more about the integrity checker very shortly. Recommend documenting your as is state. So this is really what exactly is in Maximo. Okay, and then what are the changes that are required to upgrade Maximo to the desired version? Of course, part of the process is performing the necessary changes. All right, so as part of like a trial upgrade, there's going to be a significant amount of fixes. Quite often, the integrity checker is going to spit out warnings and errors. The errors should be fixed, of course, and really these changes to the database should be documented and then performed on each subsequent upgrade run. Testing, training, rollout, of course, these are extremely important, especially the testing part, and of course training too, but you really want to do full end-to-end testing of the application, any business processes and integrations. All right, this is an extremely simplified diagram here, kind of with an upgrade process or an upgrade path and approach, really kind of split into 3 phases. There's many nuances of this. Probably the diagram, 3 or 4 other options. This is a fairly simple one. This includes 3 phases, a development phase, a testing phase, and a go-live phase. So really the requirements and design really drive what's happening in the development environment. So we take a backup of the production database, we restore it into the development environment, and we really perform kind of this trial upgrade or this development upgrade as part of this. So we upgrade we upgrade the environment, we can run the integrity checker, we're going to need to fix the errors, and then we eventually get to a state where, for example, Maximo 7.6 is going to be at the feature pack level 9. Okay. From there, we perform this once more as an example. So we do the exact same process in the test environment. And the subtle difference is it's possible that we've done a bunch of configurations in the development environment for the overall project. So from there, we may want to migrate those configurations, maybe using the migration manager tool from the development to the test environment. So this whole development testing phase, it could happen. You could do this multiple times. So you could go dev test. You may have another environment. So it's kind of you kind of go through it multiple times until you feel confident in that the process is solid. You can upgrade run without any errors. It's all documented. Testing. User acceptance testing is passed, and then you basically plan for production. And that production run would be exactly the same as the process previously. So you use your documentation, and then essentially you upgrade the production environment, you migrate, you have a kind of a changeover plan, and then you're live. Here's the current path. So in the previous slide, we kind of had 3 different runs. That's kind of the bare minimum, I suppose. Each one of those runs, you'll have to take the exact same process as this. So from 7.5, obviously there's lots of different versions of 7.5. You need to upgrade into 7.5.11, so applying the fix pack, right? So that's going to kind of set you into a spot where you can actually pull Maximo into the 7.6 version. From there, you move it from 7.5.011 into 7.6.0.0, and then from there, you upgrade or you apply the database update to 7.6.0.9. At each step, I guess that's not necessarily true, but certainly at a few of the steps, you definitely want to run the integrity checker. Any errors should be fixed. So errors really are going to show that have to do with the integrity of the database. Maybe you've defined something in the database configuration application, and something that's actually in the database from a data perspective it conflicts with that. So you want to make sure that those are fixed. At each step, you do update the database using the IBM utilities, so something called update DB. And then lastly, I guess one thing to really pay special attention to is the process that we have on the slide here is really just for base services. Each individual industry solution also needs to be upgraded. All right, so if you've got 3 or 4 industry solutions, you do have to do kind of the same process with that. And of course, there is scenarios where you kind of do multiple things at once. So you install maybe 7609 with oil and gas 761 at the same time, and then you run update DB. So it's not like it does vary, I guess. So depending on what versions you have. Okay, so let's talk about new features. I'll kind of go through this relatively quick. We've got lots more information here. So 7609 introduced work centers, work center improvements to the platform and administration. The landing page was updated. They've updated the technician work center. They've updated the inspection work center. 7608 introduced a new budget monitoring application. So we'll talk about that a little bit in a bit. In 7608, the inspection work center was also introduced, and the image on the screen there is of the inspection work center. So you'll notice it is quite a bit different look and feel than Maximo. So that is the new kind of the modern work center application in Maximo. Okay, 7607. A lot of it, there was just a minor change, so live database password changes. 7606, so there's a new service request work center. The license monitoring application, which we'll talk about. New workflow application, so I've got some screenshots very shortly with that as well. And then database formulas were introduced in 7606, or I guess they were enhanced in 7606. 7605, they've introduced Business Analyst Work Center, Supervisor Work Center, and the Work Executions Work Center. 7604, one of the big ones was direct printing no longer uses an applet. So this is controllable by a property, but you know, as we're probably all aware, a lot of browsers are removing applet support. So of course we've IBM's pulled that out, so you can actually direct print from a browser such as Chrome that does not support applets anymore. 7603, a new authentication protocol was introduced, and then also asset depreciation schedules was introduced. And then 7602 and 7601, a few reports were added to the standard set of BERT reports that do come with Maximo. So I talked about this before. Here's what the new Workflow Designer not applet, so this is not an applet, looks like. It's a little bit different. A couple things they've introduced so that you can actually see which routing lines do have an action on them. And then there is also hover text explanation. So you can hover over any of the nodes on there, and it's going to give you some more information. So asset depreciation is now base functionality. So this was previously in the transportation industry solution. So you did have to, if you were using this, you did have to obviously purchase this industry solution. So it really allows you to calculate the current value based on the depreciation schedule. So I've got a couple screens on the bottom. It allows you to do two different types of depreciation. So straight line, so basically your depreciation for that specific asset depreciates in a straight line, and then double declining balance. So the value of that asset depreciates faster earlier in its life than later. Database configuration formulas. So this is available in 7603. It was enhanced in 7606. So this is essentially it's scripting. So it's just one more feature. We've got automation scripts available to us. Now you can actually write a simple Excel-like script. This is found in database configuration, so it allows you to be able to populate values asynchronous or synchronous with different data related on the record. So for example, I've got a little bit of a function which basically takes the max value between the full priority and the asset low priority, and then whatever attribute this script is tied to, it's going to set that as the max value. License usage monitor. So this is available under the administration module. So you'll see the screenshot on the right there. There is a new application there. Of course, you need to be granted access through security. The two things, you create the license records, and then you configure and enable the license usage monitor task. And we'll talk about that here in the next slide. You can also generate reports with the usage. So there's two reports that come with Maximo. So there's the license usage detail, and then also the license usage summary. Okay, so to talk a little bit more about the license usage monitor, so you'll see the screenshot there. This is just kind of part of the process of setting up a license usage record. So you do have the ability to select the product name. So the list that you do have the ability to select, you'll see it's essentially it's some of the industry solutions. It's also got base Maximo in there. So if you've got a full authorized license, you can pick that as a license essentially. So users can add the person responsible and log the purchase details. All right. So basically, if you've purchased 50 licenses at one point, you can put that in there. It basically allows you to track it. So original purchase date and renewal date can also be inserted in there. Really, the only required date here is the quantity field. One of the big things with this is it's going to go out and poll your Maximo system for exactly how many licenses are related to this license usage record, but it's not going to do anything. So you really have to develop a process where Maximo potentially emails or notifies the person responsible that you've exceeded what you've actually been licensed. So you do have to decide what you want to do when you exceed. Maybe it's just something, a KPI or something on the Start Center, or it's a report. You've got a tab for applications. So what happens is this tab does get auto-populated. So you'll see if it's a scheduler license like what I've put here, it does populate all the access, I guess the applications that are related to the scheduler product. This list is populated automatically. You can certainly change, add new row, things like that, but it does not include any custom applications. So if you've built out custom applications and you want to include them as part of a license, you can certainly do so. All right, so data collection must be active and license set to active. So the data collection setting is found in the More Actions menu. So this shows a lot of the select actions, but sounds like we've got someone unmuted. From there, you can schedule and enable it. All right, so the license deployed is a calculated field. So this is auto-populated with the data collection process. So you'll see this one here. There's 2 licenses deployed, and it shows that I am over-licensed. Okay, so new work centers. So let's talk about that a little bit. So this is a new functionality that was included in Maximo 7.6. You do have to get to 7.6.05 at least to be able to see some of them. They've been enhanced throughout the various feature packs. So really every single feature pack since 7.6.05 has included additional functionality, additional work centers. There's no additional licensing required to see these. All right, so they're accessed through a separate Maximo link. So there is a Maximo link. When you do deploy the work centers, you'll see the URL is Maximo-X. There is some security related to it, so you do have to grant access through security. These work centers run on desktops, tablets, smartphones. So they actually, if you do pull it up on a tablet, because it is a more modern UI, it's going to resize, it's going to look good on your tablet. Okay, IBM's taken a role-based approach for these. So there's I believe there's 7 different work centers available to us in 7.6.09. Here are the different work centers. So work execution was introduced well, I guess the name was changed, so it was formerly technician, but now it's called work execution in 7609. So this allows us to manage all our tasks assigned to us through your supervisor. You can view plan materials, plan tools, and basically anything that's needed to have you complete that assignment. Supervisor, this was also updated in 7609. This basically allows us to manage the workload of a team and assign owners to work. Business Analyst Work Center, this was part of the initial release. This allows us to analyze information, monitor, identify trends. Dataset Designer allows us to create data sets for extracting data. So you can dump data from Maximo, create a data set, and then dump it into Excel as an example. Service Request allows us to create service requests very quickly. You can also monitor and take a look at the status of service requests that you have entered. And then we've got two newer ones. So the Inspection Supervisor, so this allows you to create inspection forms, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit more detail. And then there's also the Inspection Work Center. So inspections are essentially part of the work planning process. You can associate this to a job plan, and then basically it really leverages job plans so you can create a work order and have those tasks linked to an inspection. Okay. Just to give you an idea of what the new Service Request Work Center looks like, so this is available in 7606, allows you to submit a service request in Maximo, can be used on a variety of devices, so this is kind of what it looks like. Here's this landing page for work centers. So you'll notice 7.6, with the new UI, you can actually, on the top left, you can actually search and find for any applications. So for example, if I search for inspection, it's going to show me that there's two applications, conduct an inspection, manage an inspection form. The nice thing is these actually directly link to the work center, so you don't have to worry about typing in a new URL, so that Maximo-X URL, it will actually jump you directly to those two applications. Here's our inspection. So this is basically the inspection creation form. So it allows you to easily configure those inspections and the questionnaires involved with an inspection. There's a bunch of different question types that you do have available. Okay, so you can have text answers, attachments, you can have numeric answers, and then once you basically deploy it, you approve it, or you basically activate that inspection, you can now then tie it to a job plan and have the ability to use that inspection. Okay, choosing an asset or location, so this directly ties into Maximo, so you can essentially create an inspection, you tie the asset or location to that inspection, and then you choose the inspection you wish to perform. Okay. Here's another kind of example of what the inspection form looks like. Gives you an idea of what kind of questions, how it looks. Yeah. Okay, so budget monitoring. So this is a new application. This is a fairly complex application. Obviously, we don't have a ton of time to go through this. If you've got any additional questions, you need to know more about this application, certainly feel free to reach out. But what this application is, you can create budget records to monitor transactions throughout a financial period or year. So it can help you ensure that budgets or activities are completed within the approved budget. All right. So a few things, it's going to kind of show budget lines so you can actually see what the total budget amount, or I guess you set the total budget amount for a specific, for example, location. It then is going to calculate and show what your estimated total cost is, the committed total cost, actual total cost. There's some percentages that are also included there. Okay. So Maximo does calculate these through kind of Java code essentially, so you don't have a lot of opportunity to be able to change those. You do have the ability to create custom ones though, and we'll talk just a touch more about that. Okay, so here's your budget monitoring application. So this is basically a full budget record that's been associated to an asset. So in order to create the budget monitoring record, you must create something called a focal point. So in the middle of the screen there, we've created a focal point for assets. And there's a bunch of focal points that are out of the box for Maximo. So you can create focal points that are based on assets, locations, GLs, and what it's going to allow you to do is bring in those budget lines related to one of those focal points. So we've got budget lines on the bottom, and the identifier shows essentially the assets that we have in Maximo. It gives me the asset description. We can set a budget amount, and then visually on the screen, what's going to happen is it's going to calculate our total costs, our percentages, to allow you to be able to visually see what's happening there. Okay, just another screen. I guess, maximized what that budget line looks like. So you can see, and this is specific to a location focal point. You can see there's the budget amounts that you do set. There's quite a bit of information and settings that you have available to us. Okay, so internal labor, external labor, direct material amount, shared material amount, etc., service amount. Okay. All right, last slide here. So just a couple things. So upgrading to Maximo 7.6, kind of the keys to success. We really need to analyze our requirements, determine business process requirements. All right, so what exactly are we doing as part of this upgrade? Is it going to be kind of a technical like for like, where what you had in 7.5 is what you're going to have in 7.6? Maybe you're going to roll out the new UI features, but all business processes will be the same. Or are you going to do a process improvement upgrade project? So you're going to make some changes to the business process. You're going to change workflows. So that substantially changes what your upgrade project looks like. You want to make sure you plan and understand the upgrade path and approach. So how many environments do you have? What exactly are the steps? Where's testing taking place? Things like that. Quite often you don't know the scope of work. So, making an attempt and doing a trial upgrade really is going to tell you how complex of an upgrade this will be. So this is certainly a good task that you can perform. Allows you to see exactly what kind of errors you're going to run into. Testing, so perform a significant amount of testing. You want to make sure you do that. Make sure you go through the user acceptance testing. Multiple testing sessions is certainly required as part of an upgrade. One thing I just note, don't assume things work. That's usually a bad way to approach things. Perform multiple upgrade runs. So you're going to want to upgrade multiple times depending on how many environments you have. So if you've got the 3 environments, development, test, production, obviously you're going to want to run the upgrade before production. You want to upgrade at least twice. So if you're running into additional errors, maybe on your second run, and you've had to change the approach, you may need to add an additional upgrade run. And then lastly is the training and change management strategy. You want to make sure you have a good strategy for this. What exactly are you doing in terms of training? Because that UI has changed, it's going to be a little bit different look and feel for the end users. Okay, demonstration. So I'm going to just switch over to Maximo. We'll spend just a couple minutes. I know we're getting to the end of the hour here. So I'm going to switch to Maximo here. And I'll log in. Okay. There we go. So we've got Maximo here. So you'll notice firsthand the login screen is quite a bit different than Maximo 7.6. It's got a dark screen, slightly different. When I log into Maximo, the look and feel is certainly different. One of the big things here is we've got our left-hand navigation icon or our navigation window. The Start Center is certainly different. We've got our different portlets on the Start Center. They're a little bit more, you can actually, they kind of jump out at you a little bit. One of the really nice things is this Find Navigation Item menu. You can actually search and find. So if I was going to just go to my inspection, I can actually just type in INSP. It's going to auto change exactly what we see. So if I was looking for my new budgeting application, Okay, so there's our budget monitoring application. I can find that there. My license usage, you can certainly type it. Okay, so I'm just going to go into the inspection. So as an example, I can click the inspection one. And what that's going to do is that's actually going to bring up a new window, and this is essentially my inspections application or my inspections work center. So a couple things I want to point out. You will see that that is a new application. So if you are, I guess if you're involved with the application server side of things, it is a new application altogether. So it is in addition to the Maximo ear file, there is another application that needs to be deployed. Okay. Go back to Maximo here. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of it for a demo. What we're gonna do here is Marta's gonna kind of open up the line here. We've got the QA session. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to ask. And I will certainly put my contact on the screen. All right. All right. Well, thanks everyone for taking some time out of your day to attend. Hopefully everyone's found this informative, and wish you all the best. Thanks everyone.